What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? This your boy Light Luciferian Prince coming at you with another topic today. It's going to be a rehashment of something I did years ago, and it's going to be talking about the Form 56 and the fiduciary relationship. But let me say this before I proceed. This does not constitute legal advice, nor does it constitute anything anti-tax or anti-government. The sole purpose is for informational and educational purposes only. Now that we got that out the way, you got to cover yourself nowadays. People try to use little advantages on you sometimes. Sometimes they try to use your own words against you. But years ago when I started this video, I did this video on the Form 56. It's because I realized the potential of the usage of the form. The form particularly is supposed to be used whenever you want to cancel or put on notice the cancellation or termination, I should say more or less, of the fiduciary relationship between the Department of Treasury and the so-called Internal Revenue Service. Because again, a fiduciary in any respect, legally and definitively, is an entity that is responsible for the financial affairs of the individual who's signing the form. Now, years ago, I just told people how to fill out the form, yada, yada, yada. Unfortunately, it got a little bit out of hand in the online community world because, like I said before, people were using the content to profiteer for their own personal purposes. But the sad thing is they didn't even understand what the hell they was even dealing with anyway. So now it is 2020 and everybody's asking me the same shit that I was telling them back in 2017. So let me break this down. All right. This is a Form 56. It's notice concerning fiduciary relationship. It's a legitimized form. It's an actual legitimized form. This is mine. I've been using it for years. And I'm going to go over something with people so they can get the proper understanding about what the usage of the form is and how it applies to you and your commercial affairs. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let us look at the definition of fiduciary. A fiduciary is a person who holds a legal or ethical relationship of trust with one or more other parties, person or group of persons. Typically, a fiduciary prudently takes care of money or other assets for another person. One party, for example, a corporate trust company or trust department of a bank, acts in fiduciary capacity to another party, who, for example, has entrusted funds to the fiduciary for safekeeping or investment. Likewise, financial advisors, financial planners, and asset managers, including managers of pension plans, endowments, and other tax-exempt assets, are considered fiduciaries under applicable statutes and law. In a fiduciary relationship, one person in a position of vulnerability justifiably vests confidence, good faith, reliance, and trust in another whose aid, advice, or protection is sought in some manner. In such relation, good conscience requires the fiduciary to act at all times for the sole benefit and interest of the one who trusts. Pay close attention to that. We're going to get back to that. A fiduciary is someone who has undertaken to act for and on behalf of another and in a particular matter in circumstances which give rise to a relationship of trust and confidence. Lord Millet, Bristol and West Building Society versus Moththew. Fiduciary duties, in a financial sense, exist to ensure that those who manage other people's money act in their beneficiaries' interests rather than serving their own interests, which we know off the muscle. That was a bold-faced lie when it comes to certain instances, but I don't want to get too far ahead. The fiduciary duty in the 21st century program finds that, far from being a barrier, there are positive duties to integrate environmental, social, and governance, this is ESG, acronymical factors in investment processes. The program also includes that integrating ESG issues into investment research and processes will enable investors to make better investment decisions and improve investment performance consistent with their fiduciary duties. See section Fiduciary Duty and Pension Governance. Let's go further. A fiduciary duty is the highest standard of care in equity of law. A fiduciary is expected to be extremely loyal to the person to whom he owes the duty, which is considered the principal, which is yourself, such that there must be no conflict of duty between fiduciary and principal. And the fiduciary must not profit from their legal position as a fiduciary, unless the principal consents. That's what he just said. The nature of fiduciary obligations differs among jurisdictions. In Australia, only prospective or negative fiduciary obligations are recognized. Whereas in Canada, fiduciaries can come under both prescriptive negative and prescriptive positive fiduciary obligations. In English common law, the fiduciary relationship is an important concept within a part of the legal system known as equity. In the United Kingdom, the Judicature Acts merged the courts of equity, historically based in England's Court of Chancery, with the courts of common law. And as a result, the concept of fiduciary duty also becomes applicable in common law courts. When a fiduciary duty is imposed, equity requires a different, stricter standard of behavior than the comparable tortious duty of care in common law. The fiduciary has a duty not only to be in a situation where personal interest and fiduciary duty conflict, not to be in a situation where their fiduciary duty conflicts with another fiduciary duty, and that a duty not to perform for their fiduciary position without knowledge and consent. A fiduciary ideally would not have a conflict of interest. It has been said that fiduciaries must conduct themselves at a higher level than that trodden by the crowd, and that the distinguishing or overriding duty of a fiduciary is the obligation of undivided loyalty. Now, what did all of this just say in legal terms? It's letting you know, people, that the definition of fiduciary means that somebody else who's legally responsible for the financial and or legal affairs of the individual who also consents to giving them that position. What this form does is it takes that consent away and it places the obligations back on the people who consider themselves persons by the corporate idea, what we call America, in the position to be responsible for what they impose against you. Yes, people, that was broken down in less than 10 minutes. Now, what does this form do? This form places notice to fiduciaries, but I noticed that there was a concept that people had a misunderstanding about years ago. And let me clarify this and let me fix this for you. The truth is that on the forms that have been revised today, the section which talks about the total revocation or election, or the option for you to totally even have the capability to make this form legally conclusive, is missing. If you don't take my word for it, look it up. If you understand one thing for sure and two things for certain, there's two key numbers that you need to really understand and do more research in when you start dealing with tax forms. Don't worry about the name of the form. Look at two key numbers. We're going to go over them right quick. The Office of Management and Budget number and the corresponding revision, right? The corresponding revision also talks about particularly what? What has been placed in this form? What has been placed in this form? If indeed in this form you don't have a section where you can totally revoke your election, guess what? The form is null and void, meaning that it has no legally conclusive effect. That's a proven fact, which means that if you're filing a current form that doesn't correspond correctly with Internal Revenue Code according to the Office Management Budget number, guess what? It has no effect. Now, is anyone else online going to tell you this? Maybe not. I don't know. And it doesn't even really matter. But a lot of people ask me these questions in these videos. They ask me these questions via email. So let me generalize it for the greater public in the simplistic sense. There's a certain type of verbiage you're supposed to put on the form, but for the simple fact of the matter is just that, like I said before, people have their own incentives and their own agendas on these channels. You know, they peruse channels and, they try to pilfer information from people, which is totally understandable. I mean, it's very fine, great, fantastic. Godspeed to you. But for the people who actually want to do it right, the people who know they can contact me, they know for a fact, I go over this and do this for I've been doing this for a very long time. They know that what I'm saying is correct. If you don't have the segment on the form where it says termination of notice or termination of notice, then revocation of termination notice, then the form doesn't have any effect. And see, that's one of the things that has been hidden from people for years. And that's the reason why a lot of people never got it correct. They never got it correct because they always confided in the fact that they're going to take something on face value, and they don't understand that these forms are often revised on an annual basis. So sticking with the currentness of it, I always tell people sometimes you have to go back to the history of a topic before you can move with the currentness of it. I hope that clarified a lot for people who are concerning themselves with the fiduciary relationship between them and the United States. Because I just explained to you that they're pretending, according to the legal definition, that they're operating in your best interest, but no, they're not. This purpose of this form is to place them on notice that I will operate in my own best interest and I don't need your help to try to screw me over. That's one thing that people have to understand. Until they get that through their head, until they get that through their conscience, until they get that through their proper understanding, until they get it through their research, and until they get it through the proper admonishment that goes along with the legal concept of it, guess what? They're going to keep failing. And that was in less than 10 minutes. So, long story short, people, hey, this is what it is. I leave my email in the description section. Please, serious inquiries only in regards to it. And all other inquiries, please, I'll place you to the back burner. I am one man with limited time, and I like to live my personal existence. Totally stress-free. So, yes, this is the re-upload that I actually wanted to touch on basis of this relationship between fiduciary and the people who were so concerned about the Form 56. Peace. Love y'all. Take care. And agents, up off of here, man. Get up off of here, man. Get out. You know what I'm saying? Take care. Peace. Y'all be safe. Love y'all.